name AK-47 is known around the world, instantly recognizable even by people who have never held a firearm. It's more than a rifle. It's a symbol, a piece of engineering, and a subject of controversy. Today we'll walk through its story, how it came to be, what made it so influential, and why it still matters decades after its invention. We'll look at its origins, its basic design principles, its spread across the globe, and the ethical questions that follow. This is a factual, non-instructional overview intended to inform and reflect, not to instruct on use or construction. The AK-47 was developed in the aftermath of World War II, in a moment when many nations were rethinking small arms for the modern battlefield. Its creator, Mikhail Kalashnikov, was a Russian designer who began work on this family of rifles as the Soviet military sought a rugged, reliable weapon that could be mass-produced and issued to conscripts with minimal training. The core idea was simple: produce a service rifle that worked in harsh conditions, required little maintenance, and could be produced at scale for a nation rebuilding after immense wartime losses. At the heart of the AK-47's appeal is its reliability. Stories of functioning weapons after exposure to mud, sand, cold, and neglect are common. These anecdotes helped build a legend around the rifle. That reputation didn't arise by accident. The designers deliberately prioritized features that made the rifle tolerant of dirt and imperfect maintenance. The result was a weapon that could continue to operate where more finely tuned systems would fail. Technically, the AK-47 uses a gas-operated mechanism and a rotating bolt, phrases that tell us something about how it cycles without giving operational detail. These design choices contribute to the rifle's ability to run under adverse conditions. The AK family evolved over time into many variants and calibers, adapted by different manufacturers both inside and outside the Soviet bloc. Those adaptations and derivative models spread worldwide via state exports, conflicts, and licensed production, making the AK-47 and its successors among the most produced firearms in history. Beyond engineering, the AK-47's cultural impact is profound. It appears on flags, in logos, in songs, and in the iconography of liberation movements. For some, it represents resistance and national liberation. For others, it's a symbol of violence and instability. This dual nature is important to recognize. The same object that one person sees as a tool of defense can be, to another, a marker of oppression or terror. Media representations and real-world usage have both fed the AK-47's image, sometimes oversimplifying complex political and historical realities. The rifle's proliferation has shaped many post-war conflicts. Its relative low cost, ease of production, and robustness made it accessible to governments, militias, insurgents, and criminal groups alike. In many regions, the AK-47 became the default tool for armed struggle, frequently changing hands as alliances shifted. When analyzing the history of conflicts through the latter half of the 20th century and into the 21st, the availability of such a widely distributed rifle is a recurring factor, but it's not the cause of conflict. Weapons circulate because of politics, poverty, weak institutions, and unaddressed grievances. The presence of firearms can exacerbate violence, yet focusing solely on hardware misses the root causes that drive people into conflict. Legally and ethically, the AK-47 raises questions about arms control and responsibility. International efforts to regulate weapon flows have had mixed success. Treaties, export controls, and domestic laws attempt to limit the spread of arms to prohibited end users, but enforcement is difficult. The civilian ownership of military-style rifles varies widely by country, from outright bans to regulated purchase systems. Conversations about disarmament, arms reduction, and community safety continue to be part of broader debates about security and public policy. It's also worth noting the human side of the AK-47 story. Mikhail Kalashnikov, its designer, lived a long life and later in his years expressed complex feelings about the weapon that bore his name. He spoke about the rifle as a product of its time, a tool created during war that would be used by many kinds of people for many kinds of ends. His reflections highlight the tension between invention and consequence, between the engineer's pride in craftsmanship and the social realities that follow. When we examine the AK-47 from a neutral historical perspective, We see both technical ingenuity and unintended consequences. Engineers and historians can appreciate the elegance of a robust, mass-producible design. At the same time, policymakers and communities must grapple with the human cost when firearms become widespread in fragile contexts. Responsible discussion means acknowledging both sides, innovation, and its moral footprint. If you're making content about the AK-47, consider framing it in ways that emphasize context and responsibility. Highlight the historical forces that shaped its creation, the geopolitical routes by which it spread, and the voices of people affected by conflicts involving small arms. Avoid sensationalism. Focus on accuracy, and when discussing technical aspects, steer clear of operational or construction details that could be misused. Responsible storytelling matters because media shapes perception. How we discuss weapons influences public understanding and policy conversations. There's also an educational opportunity. A script can explore how nations responded to the proliferation of small arms, examining programs aimed at disarmament, conflict prevention, and post-conflict recovery. Many non-governmental organizations and international bodies work on programs to buy back weapons, provide alternatives to armed mobilization, and support communities in rebuilding. These stories of recovery and prevention are as important as the stories of conflict because they show paths away from violence. Another angle is the artistic and symbolic role of the AK-47. From magazine covers to murals, the rifle appears in visual culture as a powerful signifier. An effective script can unpack how imagery is used in propaganda, art, and popular culture, and how those representations shape collective memory. Interviews with artists, historians, or community leaders can add depth and a human texture that pure technical description lacks. As a closing note to viewers, it's valuable to invite reflection. Weapons like the AK-47 are products of specific historical moments and technological choices, but they also remind us of the enduring need for diplomacy, strong institutions, and social programs that address root causes of conflict. Knowledge helps, not to glorify, but to understand. If people want to learn more, direct them toward reputable historians, academic works, and verified reports that examine arms proliferation, conflict history, and peace-building practices. In short, the AK-47 is a multifaceted subject. It's a landmark in small arms design and a global symbol with heavy moral weight. Any discussion should balance technical description with historical context and ethical awareness. By doing so, creators can produce nuanced, informative content that educates rather than inflames, that provokes thought rather than celebration of violence. If you're aiming to make a video, consider combining narration with archival footage, expert interviews, and clear on-screen text that emphasizes facts and context. Above all, treat the topic with the care it deserves, because stories about weapons are always, at their core, stories about people and the choices societies make.